Father, here are we today. And God, from our hearts is flowing gratitude and thankfulness. God, thank you for just being who you are. Thank you for the ways you've made this week. Thank you for bringing us over and under and around this week. Thank you, oh God, that when we did not see a way, God, you made a way. And God, we're standing here today because you made a way. God, now we need you in this moment. May now, oh God, you speak to us not only through these words and these microphones and through the virtual ways, but oh God, we need your spirit to continue to flow. So God, may you press us so that the oil might flow. Let it flow like just down from Aaron's beard, oh God. And let your spirit have its way even in this preaching moment. Come, Holy Spirit, come, heavenly dove. Fall fresh on us even right now. In the mighty name of Jesus. Somebody said amen and amen. Can you give God praise for what he's getting ready to tell you and what he's getting ready to do? Hallelujah. 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 Friends of God, when the Spirit moves, I cut the sermon. And so for a few brief moments, won't you indulge me again in John chapter 21. John chapter 21. And for the sake of time this morning, I only want to read just one verse, verse 12. John chapter 21, verse 12. Here's what it says. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples dared ask, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. For the time that is ours to share today, family, I want to preach and hang my homiletical hat on that last verse. And I want to preach, I know it was the Lord. I know. I ain't got to ask, you ain't got to tell me. I know it was the Lord. Yes, sir. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. I know it was the Lord. Hallelujah. Friends of God, there are some questions you ain't got to ask. There's some things you should already know. There's some things you ain't have to ask, who is that? Or who made it happen? As a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, you just ought to know. Friends of God, in our text today, Jesus and the disciples get schooled real quick because they act like they don't know. And Jesus has to remind them that you would not be here if it were not for the Lord who was on your side. And sometimes you just got to ask the question, where would we be? Friends of God, these disciples have been frustrated and confused because they're wondering, who is this guy who allows so much to happen in my life? Who's the one that allowed and turned little into much? Who's the one, friends of God, that made a way where there was no way? They're asking the question, who is this man? They call him from the ghetto of Nazareth, who died on Golgotha's hill but was raised. And who is this man who loved me so much that he came back for me, rescued me, got me out of the pit of hell from where I was, and now I'm standing up straight. Who is this man? Peter and the disciples soon figure out that it's nobody but Jesus. After all they have seen Jesus do, they ain't got a question anymore. After all Jesus has showed them, they don't have to question anymore. After all Jesus has blown their mind in just one day, I'm not talking about years of your life, in just one day, they ain't got to ask anymore because they know it's the Lord. They recognize that only one man is able to do something like this. They recognize that the Lord is sovereign and he's able to do what he wants to do, however he wants to do it, and with whoever he wants to do it. That the Lord is autonomous and he doesn't have to report to anybody. He doesn't have to file paperwork to process your prayer requests. He ain't got office hours or limited availability. But just like today, the Lord can show up any day and any time and show out. Friends of God, have you ever looked around and just took stock of your life and just said, that got to be Jesus? You ever looked at nature, looked at the mountains and the trees and the sky, and you said, that got to be the Lord? You ever looked at the stuff you got knowing that you didn't come from much, but now you're here? You got to say, that's nobody but Jesus. You ever looked at where you used to be, how you used to talk, where you used to go, and now look at you? You got to say, that's nobody but Jesus. You ought to turn to your neighbor and say, it's nobody but the Lord. Well, friends of God, please know that these disciples have not always recognized who Jesus was. Just like you and I don't always recognize when Jesus is moving and working in our lives. You know the story. Peter and the disciples are fishing in their comfortable position, and they believe that a stranger was telling them to cast their nets on the other side, and when they cast their nets on the right side, they catch more fish than they ever have before. Well, the disciples are happy and they're excited about what the Lord, or what this stranger rather, has allowed them to do. And John, the beloved disciple, tries to take a good look to see who this stranger might be. And he says, hey, Peter, I think that's Jesus. Peter, without any hesitation, puts on his swimming trunks and he goes to the shore and he begins to talk and to walk with Jesus. And while he's reclining with the Redeemer, here come the rest of the disciples, lagging along with the fish that they caught, unsure of who Peter has went to go and meet. But when they get to the shore, they see a man who is flipping fried fish like it's nobody's business. And this man invites them to breakfast, and these disciples clear their eyes. They take another look. They remember what has happened to them. And your Bible says that they dared not ask who this man was because they knew it was the Lord. Your Bible shows us that they had to get a little closer to realize who the source of their success is. They had to get a little closer to realize who the strength of their life is. They had to get a little closer to understand who this man really is. And when they roll upon Jesus, they thought it was a stranger, but they finally realized that it was the Lord. Jesus does something in this text that while these gentlemen are fishing, Jesus is yet fishing them. He allows them to catch something, that's the bait, and he reels them in with the curiosity of his call and the longevity of his love, and all of a sudden all these brothers are hooked on Jesus. Maybe Jesus is trying to teach them that I've called you, friends of God, to be fishers of men. that I've called you to evangelize. I've reeled you in to testify of my goodness. I've called you to be an example for others. I've called you to feed the hungry and to heal the sick and to mend the brokenhearted. I've called you to encourage somebody along life's journey. I've called you to bring others to Christ. And these brothers are busy not fishing for people, but fishing for comfortability. And Jesus has to reel these brothers back in and catch them up and help them to get it that it's not about what you want to do. It's not about how you want to happen, but you better recognize that it's about the Lord. And maybe, friends of God, this shows the disciples and you and I that you can't catch somebody if you're not caught first. Friends of God, how can you tell somebody about the goodness of the Lord if you don't recognize the goodness of the Lord in your life? How do you expect to bring others to Christ if you aren't connected with Christ? How do you wrongfully guilt people in coming to church when you ain't all that consistent at all? How do you hold people to God's standard and expectations, but you not even living right yourself? Many of us have not allowed ourselves to be caught by the Lord. We looked the part, but not caught. We talked the part, but not caught. We post on Facebook the part, but not caught. We attend church, but not caught. We say giving honor to God, who's the head of my life, but we ain't caught. Many of us have not allowed the Lord to work in us because we like the facade of it, but we don't like the change that's required. Friends of God, you've been caught by the Lord when you allow him to make a change in you, and that change works from the inside out, and people are wondering, who is this God that you are serving? You know you've been caught when you ain't worried about who's calling your name. All you worried about is Jesus calling your name. You know you've been caught when you go from talking, be worried about what people say about you, to being concerned what God has to say about you. You and I have to be more Christ-focused instead of crises-focused. You and I have to learn how to glance at our problems and gaze at God. Because eventually when you gaze at God, your problems become smaller than the God that you serve, and you come to the realization that it's nobody but the Lord that can help me out. Let's be real, we didn't always recognize who Jesus was in our life. Many of us was out here taking the wrong bait. We've been caught up by the wrong things. Many of us have been caught up by ego. Friends of God, if you were in the boat with these disciples, you would probably, well, let me just say, I would probably try and take all the credit myself. I mean, Jesus wasn't in the boat. Jesus wasn't the one who had to drag all the fish. Jesus wasn't the one who had to do all the work. That was me. I did that. And how dangerous a philosophy to believe that you are more than you really are. How dangerous to allow your ego to make us believe that we alone are the reason we have what we have. How dangerous are we when we believe that the world revolves around us? For all ego does is it pushes people away. It closes up your mind. And soon after, you're left alone with your own selfish ways. And some of us have been caught up by egos. We want our name and our title everywhere. We want people to clap for us. We want people to praise us. We think that we don't need nobody else. We think we did this all by ourselves. We act like we woke ourselves up this morning. We act like we started ourselves on our way. We act like we protected ourselves from danger seen and unseen. But I declare this morning that I need the Lord. That it was not me, but it was only God who woke me up this morning, started me on. I'm here because of him. I like what Brother Lucas said to me one day when we were going on a walk. He said, Pastor, all ego stands for is edging God out. And Friends of God, when you and I have an inward focus on what we have done instead of recognizing what the Lord has done in our lives, we quickly edge God out. The brothers in the ship finally got close enough to realize who Jesus was and that they needed Jesus. That if it had not been for him, we'd still be out here. If it had not been for him, we'd still be stuck. If it had not been for him, we'd still be lost. But the reason I have what I have and can do what I can do is because I know it was the Lord. And I wonder if there's anybody in the virtual physical sanctuary who can declare that I know it was the Lord. You know you didn't wake you up this morning, it was the Lord. You know you didn't blow breath in your body, it was the Lord. You know you didn't get up by yourself, it was. You know you did not heal your body, you know it's the Lord. You know you didn't make it out of multiple surgeries, it was the. Is there anybody knows that it ain't about me, but it's about him? And if it had not been for the Lord who was on your side, you got to wonder, where would we be? It wasn't a horoscope. It wasn't me manifesting it. It wasn't my connections. It wasn't my intellect. It wasn't me being a good boy or girl. It was nobody but Jesus in my life. Friends, there are some things in your life that you don't have to ask who. You knew it was the Lord. Making it through a pandemic. Nobody but Jesus. Making it through hospital visits, nobody but Jesus. Making it through divorce and legal issues, nobody but Jesus. Making it through custody battles, nobody but Jesus. Making it through HEW hockey sticks on your job, nobody but Jesus. Making it through secret battles that nobody knew about but you and God, nobody but Jesus. Making it through trials and tribulations you had on the left and on the right, nobody but Jesus. And I wonder this morning, is there anybody who has a nobody but Jesus praise? Because you know only he can do it. You ought to have a replay party in your life and remember all that you went through and just declare nobody but Jesus. I know some folks look at you strange and they wonder how you make it, but just tell them nobody but Jesus. You ought not point at yourself, but you ought to point up and say nobody but Jesus. That I might not know how, but I do know who. I might not know when, but I do know who. I might not know when, but I do know who. I might not know why, but I do know who. Somebody ought to shout, I know that it was the Lord. And that's why we sing, to God be the glory for the things he has done. Because I know that it was nobody but Jesus. You ought to tell somebody that Jesus ain't just a name. Jesus is all encompassing. Because when I call on Jesus, he's a way through, he's a way over, he's a way under, and he's a way out. Jesus ain't just a name, but it's a full sentence. We got to go, but can we call his name? If you know it was nobody but Jesus, you ought to reach your hands towards heaven and say, Lily of the Valley, bright and morning star, doctor in the sick room, lawyer in the courtroom, can we call his name? Bread when I'm hungry, water when I'm thirsty, a way maker, a promise keeper, a light in darkness. Can I call his name? His name is J-E-S-U-S. That spells Jesus. And when I look back over my life, I can declare that it was nobody but the Lord. Because if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, where would we be? And is there a praiser in the house who can give God your best praise? Because you know that it was nobody but Jesus who brought you through. Nobody but Jesus that you are here today. Nobody but Jesus that by his stripes you are healed. Nobody but Jesus that I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. You ought to turn to your neighbor. I said you ought to turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, it was nobody but the Lord. Turn to the other neighbor and say, neighbor, it was nobody but the Lord. You ought to turn to the preacher, look at the preacher, and say, it was nobody but the Lord. It's not about you, but it's about him. It's not about us, but it's about him. Is there anybody? Is there anybody who can give God praise because you know that it was the Lord? Without a shadow of the doubt, you know it was nobody. 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 I know it was the Lord. We're standing across the house today, standing across the house today.